Okay, I think let's start. So we completed few part of the choosing section, but we can start again so that you get the context. So just to give you the context, now we are reading this section where actually it says that actions you can always take. Which are the actions which we can and which we should always take to come out of our comfort zone and be in the leadership state. In that, the first, so he says that it is CPR, choosing, planning, and responding. These three things we have to and should be doing all the time. So let's start reading the choosing part. So you can start reading from here.
जी जी choosing to get out of the passivity cycle, it is going to take some initiative. You simply need to choose something, anything that you will pick up and own. In my early 20s, I was in a season of going from one internship to another. During that season, just about every internship included some kind of closet I had to clean out. I now realize that in every church or organization or even a home, for that matter, there is that closet that just accumulates all of the junk. When you don't know what to do with something, you just throw it in that closet. In most organizations, there is a day that comes around every year, coincidentally, right around the time interns begin working, when the closet needs to be cleaned out. Now that I am on the other side of the closet cleaning equation, I love seeing interns that choose to clean it out before being asked. Every organization has closets like this. The closet represents that thing that needs to be done, but no one wants to do. There are projects, problems, and processes that get neglected. They may have worked once, but over time were forgotten or abandoned. During a crisis season, some things were dropped and never picked up again. Often, these are the long term planning items, the practices and habits that make an organization healthy over the long run. But they will take some work to clean out and polish off. I believe a natural way to reject passivity is to focus on that closet, choosing a closet to clean. Find something that no one else wants to do and just handle it. Find that thing that is always brought up in meetings, but no one ever does anything about, and go find a solution for it, or choose to own it in a way that a great leader would. I did not see these types of things as opportunities until I started to move up in leadership and away from the front lines of ministry. But the truth is that the closer you are to the action, the more insight you have on what needs to change at that micro level. You will likely have better insight than your boss does as to the changes needed for the day to day processes that make up your job and those of your co workers. You are closer to it. The manager at Waffle House is not going to know how to make a waffle taste better. The cook at Waffle House will. When I talk to interns or entry level team members who feel they can't make a difference, I get giddy explaining to them that they are perfectly positioned to be able to see what most needs to change. In fact, no one is better positioned to see what is not working. So find something that needs to change, choose to own it, and come up with a realistic plan to fix it. One of the people in our organization whom I know does this best is Robbie Angle. While I was at Browns Bridge Church, part of North Point Ministries, we hired Robbie as a middle school group's director. It is not a very sexy title, but it is a crucial role for our ministry to middle school students. The job description for that role is twofolded. First, he needs to ensure that adult volunteer small group leaders have everything they need to lead the students to discover a faith of their own. Second, he needs to remove any obstacles in their way. Roby has a business degree from the University of Florida and a master's degree in counseling from Appalachian State. He has also led post earthquake relief efforts for an entire country in Southeast Asia. Needless to say, he was feeling bored in his role after about 10 months because he was crushing it. Here is what I love though. Instead of getting frustrated with what he could not do because of the level of his role, Roby started looking around to find ways to make stuff better. That is what great leaders do. Having spent a few years after graduate school counseling teenagers, he has he was already convinced that the way to help a student best is to involve the student's father. So after he had competently mastered the core essentials of his role, he asked if anyone on the team had a problem with him tinkering with ways to help facilitate better relationships between fathers and sons. What he came up with was not rocket science, but it was well thought out, carefully orchestrated, and manageable through our existing small group model. Roby created an event for fathers to give their 8th grade sons a blessing before they entered high school. He called the event a pig roast because what was not to love about a bunch of fathers and sons roasting a pig in an open field? After massive amounts of pork were consumed, everyone was directed to the small groups they had been involved with for the past 3 years. Each father had been instructed to write a one-page letter to his son explaining in detail why he was proud of him. As you can imagine, after those letters were read, there was not a dry eye to be found. This event has now been implemented at all of our campuses, and it is seen as one of the key milestones for our students. And it all happened because one guy decided to lead when he was not in charge by choosing to take initiative. If you can find ways to add value in the areas others are looking to avoid, you will find yourself with more on your plate than you could ever ask for. What is not getting the energy or focus it needs? What are the things that continuously come up in meetings but never become to dos for anyone on your team? What are the things you can pick up that others have put down? Decide to be the one who is not afraid to pick it up and choose to own what others are looking to avoid. That is the first step in rejecting passivity. Make a choice.
Yeah. Thank you, Sumanji. So let me take over from the next
Ji.
section, that is planning. So the last line was decide to be the one who is not afraid to pick up and choose to own what others are looking to avoid. A very, very crucial thing. And one who has the courage to do this will definitely have the lead effortlessly. So okay, let me start from the next section, that is planning. Another antidote for passivity is developing the margin to plan. The whirlwind of your calendar likely has a way of whipping you into submission. But great leaders, whether they are in charge or not, make room for planning. Instead of reacting to your calendar, create margin to get out in front of it. I mentioned earlier that lacking time to plan and prepare for the meeting is a common problem for me. In the last chapter, actually, he mentioned here. When that happens, I resort to the easiest, least resistance plan. And having no plan is a plan in and of itself. When you are living meeting to meeting, you are being reactive instead of proactive. This was also discussed in the last chapter, that we should give some gap in between for collating the ideas and developing on them by reflecting. Here is how planning will help you counter passivity in your leadership. The most well planned idea usually wins the meeting. The most well planned idea usually wins the meeting. Think about the last several meetings you have sat in where you had to make a decision about something. Think about the last several meetings you have sat in where you had to make a decision about something. When the topic of the meeting is sent out ahead of time, there are usually one or two people who have done a bit of homework, research, and planning to determine what they are going to share. I have noticed that the most thoroughly baked idea is most often the dish chosen for the menu. The most thoroughly baked idea is the most often the dish chosen for the menu. It doesn't mean it is the best idea, but it is the idea that went the furthest down the road. But coming to a meeting prepared takes a little bit of planning. Last December, I had the opportunity to attend a football practice for the University of Alabama as they prepared for the college football playoffs. It took some explanation for Jenny to understand why I would spend time doing this, but I convinced her that any time I get the opportunity to see one of the best practice their craft, I need to take it. While I was at the practice, I met Jeff Allen, the head football athletic trainer for the team. Jeff has the daunting task of sitting in staff meetings with Nick Saban, having to give an account of the injured players. After some casual conversation, I asked Jeff, when a new staff member steps onto your team, what do you tell what do you tell them is the key to working for Coach Saban? Without any hesitation, Jeff responded, have a plan. If a player has an injury, don't just tell Coach Saban about the injury. Be prepared to propose a plan on what you are doing to rehabilitate the player. B. He then went into the hypothetical explanation. If a player has a hamstring injury, I can't just say, yeah, coach, Jalan has a pulled hamstring. We are still trying to figure it out. Instead, I need to say, Coach, Jalen has. Instead, I need to say, Coach, Jalen has a hamstring injury, and we have gotten these two doctors to give us opinions on the severity of it. And here is a plan that we are moving forward with to get healthy. This is the key idea, remember, for you. This is the key idea to remember for your own work. Never present your boss with just a problem. Very, very, very important. Because otherwise, that shows that we are not capable of thinking about the solution, and we may be always showcasing the problem and escaping, which is not good in any way. Always bring a plan for the solution. But remember, it takes planning to come up with a plan. So if we are not getting the solution, then we need to have a planning session which will bring the solution. Where in your calendar can you begin to make room to plan? I don't know, Jeff. I don't know Jeff's weekly schedule, but it's clear he has found a way to create margin in his calendar for planning. Planning takes time, thought, and mental space to be able to think their solutions. In my calendar, I have found that the only time to do this is early in the morning. On most work days, whether I have something due or not, I am early working. I'm early working through my list of what is most important for the day. Now, question that we need to ask whether we are doing that. Is it like do we have the to-do list ready and having the priority also set? What is the most important thing that I should be doing? And the next 90 days, not only for that particular day, but he has for the next 90 days also. I am at my best when I am planning well in the margins of my calendar. And you should plan time to plan in the margins of your calendar. Responding. Ramesh, you want to take over the responding section? So just to give you the background, we are discussing the CPR method that we anyway should do and always should we do. C for CPR, C for choosing, P for planning, completed, and now the last third part is responding.
R for responding. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, responding. Many people who have an ambition to coach sports desire to be the head coach. Most people don't get their sights on being an assistant for life. However, most of the great head coaches were great assistant coaches. The last few winning Super Bowl coaches spent a good portion of their career as assistants. Bill Belichick was an assistant for 12 years with the New York Giants, mostly under Bill Parcells. Before Gary Kubiak won the Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos, he cut his coaching teeth as an assistant with the San Francisco 49ers, winning a Super Bowl as a quarterback coach in 1994. Pete Carroll was an assistant for almost 20 years before he stepped into the head coaching role. Being a good assistant is a key to learning to be the head coach. To be a great assistant coach, you have to be able to anticipate and respond to what's important to the head coach. The assistant coach has to move one step ahead during practice, setting up the next drill in order to keep practice moving. Leaders seeking to resist the passivity of not being in control need to do the same. Rather than responding only to what comes next on their calendars, great leaders respond to what's most important to the boss and move accordingly. In order to be able to participate and respond to the direction the boss is heading, you and I must know what is important to who we're working for. Here are a few questions that can help if you're currently stuck in passivity. What was my boss established as? What was my boss established as the greatest win for our team? What has my boss established as the greatest win for our team? If your boss could wave a magic wand and have something done, what would it be? What is your boss What is your boss most worried about? What is creating stress? How can you relieve them? On your team, what is a frequently discussed problem? Can you take steps towards fixing it today? Word to the wise. Make sure you ask these questions of yourself before you ask them of your boss. As you train yourself to choose what's not getting done, plan time for future planning in the margins of your calendar, and then respond to what's the most pressing for your boss. You'll have a game plan that can work. That's the CPR for resuscitating the proactivity that defeats passivity.
CPR for getting the proactivity that defeats passivity. Proactivity defeats the passivity. Yes.
That means basically resuscitating means you're bringing back to life the proactivity. Yeah, so that the passivity is gone.
Yeah.
And you get things done.
Right. So quickly, if anyone wants to add anything, then please go ahead. And then we'll end the call. Tomorrow we'll read the session, a waste of time.
I think if you look at this, really, it looks like somebody who's honestly and genuinely responsible, who's ethical and who wants to do the right thing in a company, irrespective of whether he's been given the job or not. It's of course a very rare gem to find such a person who has this attitude. But if we develop it, then I think invariably we will be attracting the Daiva Balam to make our nature itself so service oriented that it becomes selfless and a channel of the divine.
Yeah, right. These questions are very much uplifting actually. It brings clarity.
Yeah.
It says like, what has my boss established as the greatest win for our team? If I know what is the greatest win that my boss has established, then my priorities already kind of have a direction.
The aligned.
Because ultimately he has to acknowledge, and it is he who is giving the annual appraisal and objective plannings and all. Then second is saying, if your boss could wave a magic wand and have something done, what would it be? Something similar to the previous question, but yeah, little differently it is asked. If he could wave a magic wand and have something done, means what is his main travel area where actually he is still struggling and he wants something to be resolved. If you can understand that and take that up, then he or she will be very much relieved. And I remember I have done this actually in my past project, wherein I have taken all the most crucial part of the engagement and driven it in such a manner that my boss need not to actually interfere much. It was all going good, and because he was very much relieved out of the that particular activity, he was very happy actually, and that reflected in my hike also. So it is all about like finding out what is it that is creating a stress. That is what the third question says. What is your boss most worried about? What is creating stress? How can you relieve that? How can you relieve your boss most worried? Which your boss is most worried about? On your team, what is frequently discussed problem? Can you take step forward fixing it today? frequently discussed problem. Many time people just for the sake of discussion they discuss, but nobody gives a solution, or even though some solutions are being known or being discussed, nobody wants to take action to fix them. And here the author is saying that, can you take step towards fixing it today? Again, today. Today is also very crucial. It is not like indefinitely you keep it. No. Either you act it or don't talk about the problem then. So this is really good questions to ponder so that we know how to respond. Then coming to the second part, the planning part is very common, that how actually the planning we should do, and we that with this example actually he has mentioned very nicely. I am up early working through my list of what's important for the day, the week, and the next 90 days. I am at best when I am planning well. I am at my best. Everyone wants to be at their best. And when it happens? When I am planning well in margin of my calendar. And you should plan time to plan in margins of your calendar. So for planning also we need time. And for that, for doing that planning also we again need to plan. Which actually many times we fail. Failing to plan is planning to fail. There is a very nice, I love this quote actually, somehow it's stuck in my mind. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So we should have some time, planned time to plan our day, week, and maybe quarter. Then the first part, choosing part, the lengthiest part. You want to give some input, Sumanji?
Gigi, after reading this CPR system, I'm having the feeling that though this book is about that when you are not in charge, but I think whether we are in charge or not, definitely we may get considered in line for the next to get the next charge.
Yes, definitely. That will automatically happen.
Yeah.
That is what actually is something like when you don't have the position authority, that time how you should act so that you will get automatically the position and leadership
Yeah.
position. And
Yes.
that doesn't mean that it has to be have in a company setup. It is true in every setup, every in a family, in an area where actually your friends gathering or a social gathering or an NGO work also that you are doing, everywhere actually it can be applicable and very much
Yeah,
related.
even in classrooms also, the teachers used to select the monitors just with this intuition and
Yeah,
watching that who is responsible and
definitely, yes. As a sometimes when I've been a teacher amongst thing, or even as a team lead, you look for people who have these kind of qualities. When they get the job done, even though they're not, nobody's watching them.
yes, very
They have
true.
that. So that kind of, I think anybody would naturally feel reliable about.
So,
It would be nice if we can train our own families to and relatives to be like this. By, of course, us training ourselves first, and then setting an example.
yeah. So it is all about this choosing part is all mostly about the to how to reject the passivity, means inertness, being lazy and not doing anything, to a position wherein actually we know which are the pain point, something like the third point, but here actually is saying like the things which are never being picked up by anyone. The closest represents that things that needs to be done, but no one wants to do. The closest. So we can actually identify those kind of things which no one wants to do, and that is the challenge. And if someone can do that, then nothing like it. Then automatically the name and fame and the leadership opportunities, everything comes, because something which is very difficult has been carried out. Okay, great. So tomorrow we are starting a new subtopic, that is a waste of time. Interesting. And then chapter 7 also we will chapter 3 part 3, that is challenging authority, that we will start tomorrow. Thank you all for joining, and see you again tomorrow.
Thank you, Bikash ji.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sumanji.
Thank you, Vikash.